Think of a shelled animal. Go on. I bet you thought of one of these, or one of these, or even one of these. An animal with a shell. So how come out of these two handfuls of walnuts, these are the ones sold as shelled? English is full of single words with two directly opposing meanings. How does this end up happening? Let's find out in another Rob Words. There's a term for words that are their own opposites. They're called contronyms. Or sometimes they get called Janus words after the two-faced Roman god. January is also named after him. There are a variety of fascinating historical reasons why a word can end up having two contradictory meanings. How something can be stuck fast, but also move fast. How something clipped can be attached or severed. I'm going to get into all of them, and with a little bit of help too, because each one takes you somewhere surprising. We'll get back to my nuts later, but first let's take one of the examples I just mentioned, the word clip. How come we can both clip things together and clip them apart? Well, this story starts with the Vikings. Now, the Vikings could famously be a vicious bunch, and their murderous assaults on England's coastline meant all kinds of violent vocabulary passed from their language, Old Norse, into ours. After they went berserk, slaughtering and ransacking with their knives and their clubs, we took on their words: berserk, slaughter, ransack, knife, and club. But another grim borrowing from the Norsemen was their word for to sever, klippa. It probably came from the sound of the process, like our words snip and clap do. It's called onomatopoeia. Now, it appears the traumatized Anglo-Saxons, the original English speakers, took on this word and anglicised it, because it later appears in Middle English as klippen. This is a weird spelling of it, because the writer, a monk called Ormin, was famously obsessed with double letters. But this word is the ancestor of our word clip, meaning to cut. However, this was rather similar to a word that English already had. The Anglo-Saxons could be a rough bunch too, but it's clear that they also had a cuddly side. Why? Because they had this word, which meant to hug. It could also mean to clasp in much the way that our arms do when we embrace someone. And so later, the word is also used to describe a thing that clasps around another thing, or perhaps around two things at once. That becomes known as a clip. And then later still, to attach two items using such a clasp is described as clipping them together. In the meantime, the pronunciation of these two separate verbs, one meaning snip and the other meaning embrace, have become so similar that their spellings have become exactly the same. Hence, two words that were once different now appear as one. Ta-da! But here's the baffling thing. This process happened twice, although the second time was minus the Vikings. Old English had the word cleorvan, meaning to split. It also had the similar, but also very different word cleorvian, meaning to stick. Over the past millennium, these words have also morphed to be spelt the same way, meaning that we can both cleave something into two or cleave two things into one. Another contronym. Now, in both of those cases, clip and cleave, two different words have been cleaved or clipped together by a common spelling. But there are also cases where one word has been cleaved or clipped into two words of different meanings. A perfect example of this is the word sanction. Nowadays, to sanction someone can either mean to give them your blessing or to punish them. If you've been sanctioned by an authority, that can either mean that you've been given permission to do something or had a penalty, i.e. sanctions, imposed upon you. So how can sanction have these Jekyll and Hyde meanings? Well, it all goes back to what the word originally signified. We get the word sanction from French, but it originally goes back to the Latin sanctionum, which meant to ordain something. It's actually related to the word sanctify and ultimately saint. It's all to do with holiness. So this makes a sanction a kind of holy decree. And a decree can both give permission for something to happen and impose a punishment. Hence, that word can now have these two very different meanings, and has done for hundreds of years, in fact. And this same story has played out quite a lot of times either side of the Atlantic. I'll get into that in a second, but first, let's see how many contronyms I can fit into this next bit. Hate going abroad and not being able to access the things you watch back home? Well, next time you leave the country, you can leave behind your worries, thanks to this video's sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN allows you to choose your online location, meaning you can still cleave to the content you love back home without being cleaved from it when you go away. But NordVPN is more than just a VPN. Just sanction Nord to protect your connection, and it'll sanction any cybercriminals who try to access your data, refusing to let them in. Plus, NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro feature gives you full oversight to ensure there aren't any oversights when it comes to your cyber security. It'll scan any downloaded files for malware, direct you away from websites known for scamming people, and block irritating or harmful pop-ups. I use NordVPN all the time, and I can protect my entire family by having it on up to 10 devices. So dust away your internet troubles and dust on a little bit on NordVPN magic. Use my special link in the description or go to nordvpn.com/RobWorsVPN to get an exclusive deal with 4 months extra on top. It is risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so just give it a go. So a sanction is one word that has turned into two, and that is something that has often happened as the English language has spread around the world. Its journey across the Atlantic, for example, has resulted in a fair few more. The other day I got an email from someone who wanted to tell me that they quite liked my channel. I thought, how weird is it to go out of your way to tell someone that you thought their work was okay? It was only later that I realised that that might not have been what they meant at all.
For me, good is just above average. It's a 6 out of 10 or more. But quite good, I'm like, oh, it's quite good. That's like a 7 or 8.
That's my pal Evan Edinger, whose own YouTube channel is Quite Good. He's from New Jersey but lives in London and talks about these transatlantic differences all the time. So this is where we have a problem, right? If I had a meal and I described it as quite good, I'm actually placing it just on the underside of good. I'm basically complaining about it, whereas you would be lauding it. We Brits do have to carry the can for this one. The word was always an intensifier and only took off as a synonym for somewhat in Victorian England. It's a classic bit of English understatement. There are a couple of more I want to talk about. A couple of more, not a couple more. Table is an interesting one. Oh, specifically to table something. So a verb, tabling a motion, for example. There is a big difference.
This was one that has always confused me because I've heard it in parliamentary proceedings before when I was doing research for a video. And when I heard them say they were going to table something and then they started talking about it, I was like, what? When an American says they table something, which is normal parlance for an American, it's not just used in government proceedings, let's just table that, is kind of like how to diffuse an argument. Like, why don't we talk about that later? I always assume as like 2 dimensions. You have the verbal conversation around the round table, and then let's table this, put it on the table, talk about the other stuff, and then later we can pick it back up. Whereas in UK Parliament and such, when they table it, it's the thing that everyone is looking at and discussing.
Winston Churchill talked about this difference between the meanings of tabling, didn't he? He said when working with Americans, an acrimonious argument ensued, which is funny. I mean, it has real world implications. And in wartime, the last thing you want to be doing is upsetting your allies with verbiage. And here's another point I think we should moot. The word moot.
Yeah.
And what that means. Because again, we're dealing with whether or not we should discuss something.
I and many Americans use it regularly as a way to yet again diffuse an argument of, this is a moot point. Why don't we just table it and move on after we have had quite some time to think about it?
Whereas in British English, if something is moot, it's up for debate. You mentioned the Anglo-Saxon assemblies that were called moots, and that's what's being invoked in the British idea, right? But in the American idea, it is these mock trials that law students carry out. If it's a moot point, it's academic.
Yeah.
I love Evan. Do check out his channel, but not so fast. I have more contronyms for you, including this one. Fast. How come to run fast is to move quickly, but to be stuck fast is to be rooted to the spot? Well, both meanings go back to the same Old English word, fast. It meant fixed or firm. Here it is being used to refer to someone as having a faster morder or a fast mind, meaning they're stubborn, their mind is fixed. Fast forward a millennium or so, and the word still has that meaning to this day. It's the one we're using when we say something is stuck fast. But how does it get this additional, more common meaning of speedy? Well, the leading theory is that it's because the word became an intensifier, like in the phrase weep fast and be sorry. It's quite a lot like how we use tight in sleep tight. It's intensifying the action. It's possible that our modern use of fast to mean rapid comes from the idea of going fast, i.e. intensively going, which would involve going with haste or speed, wouldn't it? Or it could just be because doing something fast means it takes a short amount of time. It is tight. It is fast. One of those things appears to have happened, meaning that fast can indicate swift movement or a stubborn lack of it. There's a similar clash between action and inaction with another contronym, leave. Leaving can either mean something moving away or something staying behind. Left can mean gone or remaining. And as ever, there is a reason for that, but this time it's a morbid one. The earliest uses of leave in English refer to what happens when you die. Specifically, it refers to the people from whom you depart. This is from a very early English Bible. The husband of Naomi is dead, and she left with the sons. This is a meaning we still deploy when we talk about those we leave behind when we die. I told you it was a morbid one, but this hints at something absolutely amazing. And that's that the word leave is related to the word live. It genuinely is. The people that you leave are the ones who live on without you. It's from this dearly departed idea that all the other meanings of leave stem. It's easy to see how the meaning could broaden to refer to anything that stays behind when you disappear. It is left. And it's also not a stretch to get from the idea of dying, therefore leaving people behind, and you leaving, even if you're not dead. Essentially, the two very different meanings of leave are a matter of perspective. One refers to the thing doing the departing, and the other refers to what stays behind. Perspective is also behind the two different meanings of secrete. To secrete something can mean either to hide it away or to give it off. Have you ever noticed that? Secrete goes back to a Latin verb that meant to separate. It is precisely the same source as our word secret, the implication being that a secret is a bit of information set aside for the consumption of only a chosen few. To secrete something is also to set something aside, thus the meaning of to hide something away. But what about that meaning of to emit something? Well, that thing being emitted is a secretion. It is something that has previously been set aside and stored. Think about the human bladder, where all your waste liquids are first secreted, set aside, then secreted out your down below bits. I don't know why I used that example, sorry. So to secrete can mean both to store up and to let loose. I love this. We've covered Old Norse, Old English, Latin and French. And now it's finally time to talk about these nuts. The fact that something without a shell can be described as shelled and something with a shell can be described as shelled is a result of two grammatical paths leading to the same place. One begins at the noun shell, meaning a hard outer coating. If something possesses said shell, it is shelled. The other begins with the verb to shell, meaning to remove a shell. If something has had that done to it, it has been shelled. One is an adjective and the other is the past participle of a verb, but they're both written exactly the same. Something similar is going on with seeds. If you seed the ground, you put seeds in it. If you seed a pepper, you take the seeds out. If I dust a shelf, I remove the dust. If I dust a cake, I sprinkle it on. And there may be more than one way to skin a cat, but skinning a drum is very different. In all of these cases, the two opposing meanings of each word are equally rational. They both make sense. But what is interesting to investigate is which came first. Here's one worth looking at. If I right now bolted, I would run away really fast. But if I remain bolted to the spot, I wouldn't go anywhere. That's because they're each invoking different types of bolt. However, one of those objects is ultimately named after the other. In Old English, the word bolt meant a projectile, a meaning that we still have. Before you fire a crossbow, you load it with a bolt. Look at this beautiful bit of Middle English poetry. It's from a 13th century collection of pearls of wisdom, supposedly from King Alfred the Great. Among them, this gem, which translates to modern English as, "The wise man can in few words say a lot, but a fool's bolt is soon shot." It's figurative, but it's referring to a projectile, isn't it? That's the meaning we're invoking when we bolt somewhere, when we move faster than a speeding bullet, or a crossbow bolt. Here's the 17th century diarist Samuel Pepys describing bolting into the dining room. That idea of a projectile crops up in the term thunderbolt too. But to get to the meaning of bolted to the ground, the word still has a bit of work to do. Firstly, because of its shape, and because you shove it through something. Herzlichen Dank. No, das ist gut. Lecker. Testiculär. I'll start again. To get to the meaning of bolted to the ground, the word still has some work to do. Firstly, because of its shape and because you shove it through something, bolt was borrowed to describe a round metal bar used to seal a door shut. We still bolt a door now, don't we? Then, later still, the word is also applied to another round bar used to fasten something. This time, one that requires a ring of metal to be twisted around it to make the mechanism work. Enter the nut and bolt. And it is from nuts and bolts that we get the idea of being bolted down, fixed in place, as if we've been screwed to the wall or some other stationary object. Now, I've just bolted together a whole ton of examples of English words with diametrically opposed meanings. I could pluck out many more examples, such as weather. To be weathered by the wind is to be worn away by it, but to weather a storm is to withstand it. To have oversight over something can mean to observe it, but to commit an oversight means you've missed it completely. And yet, every single one I've mentioned remains usable. The system works. Context alone is enough to tell you which of the two meanings is intended, whether that's what the rest of the sentence says or, I don't know, which side of the Atlantic you're hearing it from. Sentences containing these words should be riddled with ambiguity, and yet they're not. However, there are some words with multiple meanings that do cause us problems. Contronyms that can truly confuse. For example, I give you the word peruse, a word with two very different meanings that directly clash. Now, I did some live shows in London a couple of weeks ago. It was fantastic. Thank you so much if you came. And I asked my audiences which of these two meanings of peruse they thought was correct. To casually read or to examine closely. And about the same number of hands went up for each. Now, the trick answer is that peruse can mean both and has done for centuries. It originally meant to examine. Then it came to mean to read, either intensively or otherwise. Here it is being used by Samuel Johnson in his 1755 dictionary with both of those meanings. And then it went on to mean to read through casually. Clearly, these two meanings, to read forensically or barely at all, are incompatible. And the only way to know which is intended is to somehow know the speaker's mind. If a word can have such contradictory meanings when delivered in the same context, that word is basically useless. A lot of people will tell you literally is going the same way. Will this mean that they eventually become irreparably two-faced and leave, are clipped or cleaved from our language? I reckon it's quite likely they will. If you've enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to my channel. I do lots of this stuff. And how about watching this video next? And I'll see you over there. Until next time. Take care.